Battlemaster Warlord panel.
Sweet.
So we'll start on this end and go that way. Name, how long you been in Amtgard?
Hi, my name is Chaco Rockhammer. I play out of the Duchy of Ironhold in Orem. I've been playing Amtgard for, I think it was either 07 or 09 I started, but it's been so long. But I started out in New Mexico and just moved up here many years ago.
Achilles, Relic-Seeker, also in Orem and Ironhold. I've been playing Amtgard for about 5 years now.
Wow, that's not a long time.
No.
Vansen, I'm fighting out of Ironhold.
COVID though.
I had siblings that fought Amtgard when I was young, so I was exposed to it pretty early on in life, but I didn't really start coming out until, consistently until 2010. But I had been attending events prior to that for a few years.
I'm Canthor again. Back in 2002, River's End. Now I'm in Ironhold, as the rest of the panel is, apparently.
All right, so I got like the basic questions. I'll start them if anyone has a specific question. Go.
So you guys are the master battles and representing the sword path. Which one of you guys is representing what?
I am a Master Battle.
Master Battle.
Battle.
Warlord.
What got you interested in fighting? Chaco.
Okay. So it's kind of a long story, but basically I played football up until high school, and then I got there, I was like, nah, this is too crazy, I don't care too much for it. And then I had some friends who's like, well, you like the fantasy stuff, you play D&D and stuff with that, why don't you try looking into LARPing? I found Amtgard that way. When I got into it, I loved everything about it, but the one thing that drew me was it felt like we had people who were athletic. We actually had these people who were being nerdy and yet still fighting and being athletic and pulling that strength and that skill required for it. And I kind of fell in love with this whole idea of there's a shirt meme that I loved for a while that was I'm training to do the things that my D&D character can do. And that's kind of the vibe I took on. I always wanted to be a balance between flurb and sword. That's kind of was my driving passion towards battle and learning to use that skill of swords and stuff like that.
I got into Amtgard because I originally moved up from Las Vegas here for schooling, and I just decided one day I wanted to try something new. So I Googled LARPs here in Utah. Ironhold was at the top of the list, and I decided to go and jump in one day. Showed up, started fighting with these guys, and I fell in love with the game because I like to fight outside the norm of what is in Amtgard. So I had a lot of fun with that, stepping in, throwing in a little extra crazy into the game.
So I was an athlete all growing up. I played soccer, and the first time I started fighting, I was really gravitated towards the kind of mental stimulation of a one-on-one competitive sport where you're not necessarily relying on team members in this environment. There are team aspects, but it's like chess. It was very stimulating to me to kind of figure out how can I beat this person, and I found there to be a lot of high level of reward to beating someone and just saying, oh, I did something to manipulate them, and I was able to beat them for that. And then it also just bled over to other aspects of my life. I got healthier. I would work out to just prevent injuries. And I think that really is something that solidified me staying in the game, was just noticing that this passion of mine also had a positive impact on other areas of my life.
It started out with, actually, two of my friends started out doing this and they dragged me out to it. And then eventually we just started teaming up in Battlegames, and that made it more fun. We tried started doing the whole chess game thing where, okay, which one of us is which piece, how's that going to work, and it just melded in from there to being able to figure out how all the classes together work together, and which ones are weak against what, and all that kind of stuff is what got me into it.
Anyone else got a question? Or ask another one? All right.
The judge upstairs.
Tell us about one of your favorite fights or battle games.
Had quite a bit.
Yeah, there's
few hard ones.
every battle has ups and downs in regards to all aspects. But I think, just to kind of generalize it, the battle games that I enjoy the most, that turn into my favorites. Again, it's kind of like the most recent one is your favorite kind of thing, that gets you that motivation going. But it's just when I see teams coordinating, people are talking, and you can actually see the structure of a battle at that point happening. So it's because it takes it in a battle game itself, let alone it takes like multiple groups to start getting things rolling in, and seeing those cogs and wheels start rolling in together. That's when I see the battle game. I'm like, all right, I'm seeing things rolling, and it brings out a lot of that fun in it.
I think my favorite aspect of it is generally when I pull new players and put them into a team. I'm not a huge frontline fighter. I like being the support to new players so I can get them ramped up. And I love watching them just have a ball with them just, knowing that they're covered, and then they can just go all ham on everybody that they want to fight.
Yeah, getting
So,
new players involved.
Yeah, it's always the funnest to watch them just get that huge smile, and then they get going, and they're like, that was freaking awesome! Yeah.
So I have two big things that I'm thinking of, but definitely fighting in FantasyCon years back. FantasyCon only happened, I don't know, like once or twice. It was like very short-lived. But there was this huge push for this fighting arena, and both Amtgard and Battlegames had time slots for a field, and we had over 100 people crammed into this small arena with seating for just spectators to kind of sit, and a live orchestra just playing as we're murdering one another.
Dude, that's awesome.
And the energy that was there was spectacular. I'll probably never get to experience that again. But more importantly, it's the community aspect. We meet up at the park. We meet up, same place every week, and usually you're trying to shoot to be at a public park, and I think it's really nice when you have those moments where people start to gather and they watch instead of just poking fun at, hey, yeah, look at that guy. But when people actually stop and they're curious and they're like, whoa, what's going on here? This looks fun. For me, for a hobby that I've dedicated a lot of my life to, that's why I'm here, right? To share that love, hopefully with new people.
For me, I don't even remember which Salt Wars this was. It was that long ago. It was we were doing Lord of the Rings, and we had a siege battle with a ramp at the castle, and it was back in V7, so fireballs would remain active, and they had one about this wide rolling down the ramp. That, for me, that was when we realized fireball needed to be changed.
I thought of a fun story I can share that was a good moment, if it's something more specific. This was when I was a kid, and I went to Gathering of the Kingdoms event in New Mexico, and they had an actual structure, an actual fort in the center of the field that they erected for us, and we were able to actually break down defense and stuff. But my team was in charge of trying to get onto some of the side crenellations where people were hiding and just try to keep them occupied. And I was 15 or 16 at the time, and I saw this guy. He's like, all right, yeah, and he just jumps over the wall, and I'm like, brilliant. So I got down, jump. People jumped on me, and I just started pushing them up. We were, this is when I feel like we've gotten a lot safer in recent years. This wasn't quite the safest thing. But the next thing I see is I look over and I see a friend of mine back in New Mexico, his name is Alucard, just lines up an arrow shot, throws it in, and I hear the arrow zooms by over my head, and I hear a thump, and then somebody saying, "Dead! Fight after death! Won!" And the next thing I know, the wall shakes as this guy dressed in furs, face paint, and the first thing he sees me is on the ground there, and he's just like, "Argh!" And he just jumped right over me and killed me, and then ran off, and I was just like, that was awesome. That was probably a pretty high moment for me as a kid. Ooh, Rocky.
With you guys achieving and reaching the pinnacle of the paths that you guys are on, how do you guys deal with the frustration of losing that opportunity in an unsavory way? Like somebody either cheats you or is doing something not by the rulebook or willing to do an underhanded fight. How do you guys handle that? And what are the ways that you deal with that?
I'll take this one first. So I think the best way to handle it is to realize that yes, it is a game. It's not worth your happiness to get stuck on a moment like that when you've got so many more other fights you can go to, and just continue fighting. If it really is that much of a problem and it's going to be detrimental to other people's fun, then talk to your Reeve, trust in the Reeve, and then let it go. Mm-hmm. That's going to really your best option.
Yeah, and just kind of to add more to that, because I have the same mindset. If I always think of it as like, that may not have been the best encounter at the moment, but there's always another life, there's another instance, and like for example, if I were to swing a shot and I'm like, that didn't quite, I think that connected, but I'm not too sure, nobody noticed, or I think something was incorrect. The first thing that goes through my head is like, okay, well, next time I will just make sure that there's no denying it, because our adrenaline gets pumping, especially as you get higher in their park levels and you get more fighters on the field. Adrenaline kicks in. People don't notice things. People don't hear that from 50 feet away from the wizard who says, "Extension, I'm going to do this to you," kind of thing. So it's a game. So we just got to be like, if anything, it's actually I consider it a skill, not to just to get into position to cast that 20-foot spell, but also to make it so I'm in position to where there's no denying that they can hear. I wouldn't say denying that they can hear me, but like, I want to make sure I'm in a situation where they can hear me and that they know it's happening. Be proud. Yeah, that they know it's going to happen. I'm not going to point at that single person who's hiding in the background while there's armor clinking and stuff like that. And then, hey, I shoved you, hey, I shoved you, hey, and try to get their attention. I would rather put myself in a better position to make that happen rather than trying to force the issue, because, I'm not actually pushing you with a shove spell. I'm trying to hope that you hear me.
So now, bend that towards tournaments.
So I can speak on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tournaments, that's difficult, right? Because for everyone, performance in a tournament means earning something. And achieving masterhood, you have the target on your back at that point. You're the guy to beat. Because if they beat you, especially an up-and-coming fighter, that likely means they're going to receive something for that. So your question was directed for how I handle that. And for me, that's a deliberate choice of who I am in this game, and a constant battle of what my ego is doing. It's a title. And that title means that we've all been dedicated to something over a period of time. And if someone beats you in a tournament, what does that mean? Well, I love to think of, I use the example of competitive athletes, like basketball players or a big fight, Olympics. You lose that day, does that mean that person is objectively better than you? Not necessarily, right? It just meant that something happened in that point in time. Maybe it was an honest fight, maybe it wasn't. You don't have control over that, right? And walking away from that fight, sure, there's going to be a level of excitement that people have, like, oh, I did it. Wow, that's awesome. But that shouldn't change who I am in that position, which is I am that bar. I'm providing a level of stress for people that should ultimately push them to improve and get better. To address that situation head on, though, I mean, sure, sometimes you may get heated up. Maybe I get frustrated in the moment. But what I've learned is it's very important to communicate to people and to build good habits on talking about what's happening and fighting. Because a tournament is a fight between two people, and there should be a level of maturity. And going up to that person and just saying, hey, look, like I did this, and like here's what I thought happened. Like maybe I was incorrect, and I thought that they cheated me, but in fact, no, they didn't, right? But at least to turn that opportunity in a way to build a relationship and have a discussion about it. Because ultimately, the day's going to end, and life goes on, and there's going to be other tournaments, and it's all about consistency and contributing to a safe environment for other people. The alternative would be to be toxic about it and spread hate, spread bad words towards someone that they weren't deserving of it. But a tournament win to me means very little. It's over the grand scheme of time, your performance. Over a grand scheme of time, your character and how you hold yourself in those environments. And that's what people are going to look towards. When you're in a tournament, it's how many minutes, how many hours that you're in the highlight. But then you're at an event, it's not, hey, this guy won that tournament, I want to go hang out with him. Maybe they do, and they find, hey, their character's not good. It's just the person that has a good attitude, that loves the game, loves fighting, and wants to get better. Those are all things that boil down to, I think, what it means to be a master.
Beautiful.
The way I'd handle it in both situations is asking them, so what happened there in your eyes? Because they may have been told something different, and as a Battlegame, they may have told this happens in this situation. In the tournament, they may have been told, hey, don't take this shot if this happens, or this may not work, or that. So you don't know what's on the other foot unless you ask. So how did that interaction work for you? What led you to believe that this interaction went this way?
Communication.
I think also a big part is trusting in the Reeves. Having responsible Reeves on the battlefield, judging the tournaments is something that you got to trust in, because ultimately, they have the final say, and sometimes you just have to go out on a limb and just trust them.
Oh, we had another question here.
Okay, so y'all have talked repeatedly about this is how you get new people into battle games. I'm wondering how would you individually get new people into a tournament?
I'd say
Sapling tourneys.
try to have tournaments that are based on their starting skill set, and get them hyped, get them learning, get them happy about it.
I feel like tournaments have this weird stigma of very, very rough competitions, right? But I feel like you just got to help teach, got to get them in the head that it's okay to lose. And when you first start, you're going to lose a lot, but that's the best teacher. Mm-hmm. And that opens up the conversations, with hey, if you twist, I actually remember a few times Vansen be like, hey, so I did this, and I actually twisted my arm like this. I'm like, oh, there's that little detail that made a difference. And it's just, you just got to build up to it, I feel like. It can be daunting. But it is a build-up, and there are people here that will help newer people get into those tournaments.
A big thing is also encouraging them. Wards, they go a long way with every end rate and mid rate and things like that. But ultimately, it's on the field. If you're a player that's been around for a while, it does an enormous amount of good to just say, hey, dude, that was excellent fighting. That was a great way, for you working with your teammate. You got to keep doing that. Mm-hmm. Because just boosting their confidence is a big way to help them.
I break this question down into two categories based off of the person I'm the person. I acknowledge that not everyone wants to play the game that I want to play, hyper competitive, right? And I shouldn't push and expect people to come do tournaments if that's not what they're into. The Amtgard's beautiful because it offers so much variety for people. Mm-hmm. So if someone's interested in that, great. Encouraging them, celebrating what they do. There's a lot of just kind of maybe low, mid-tier fighters that are curious and interested, and maybe they only fight 1 or 2 times, and it doesn't take much to say, hey, how did it go? Oh man, like, well, what happened if they lose, right? And that can kind of start to foster, like, it's not about the loss as much as the experience that you're able to test yourself. I think variety in the tournament format is another opportunity. Stapling tournaments to encourage a skill pool that is appropriate, where maybe more skilled fighters are there watching and just kind of encouraging people who are participating. I also think that doing more Iron Man style tournaments, which we don't actually do in our kingdom, which is a missed opportunity, is a way better option. The reason being is if you lose, it doesn't matter. You get 30 minutes of consistent fighting during that time. So if I'm a day 1 noob and I get encouraged to fight in the tournament, I get to participate for the entirety of that tournament because we're racking up points based off of performance, instead of, oh, well, I lost and now I'm out and now I'm just going to like watch these other people do it. So I think that's an opportunity within the kingdom for us to experiment with that maybe we haven't. It would be interesting to see if the newer fighters would enjoy that, or do that as part of a sapling tournament where now they're just able to all kind of participate for that full amount of time and hopefully start to kind of build up that tolerance for a competitive scenario, because I'm sure it's very anxiety inducing for tons of people.
So, question I have, because I like to design games and operate tournaments. So it leans off of the format, right? You want to see more Iron Man. Are there any other formats or battle game types you would like to see in tournaments?
Battle games and tournaments?
Yes, like what? So in battle game tournament, are there any formats you'd like to see or tweaks?
Two man forever is a good one.
The competitive battle games
Yeah.
more your sauce.
I have off the cuff, just putting this in the grinder. I don't do a lot of the battle game tournaments. That's fairly new to me. But I think it would be interesting to have a point system for your team, that you're buying into certain levels of the class that you're playing. And this is just an evolution of, for me, just in battle games, it'd be fun going into a battle game where everyone's level 1, right? Where, especially for new people, they don't know the rules, and you have these power gamers that are like, dude, I know ins and outs. And that's very overwhelming for someone who's new to that.
I thought of that too. Like
Yeah.
level 3.
Right. But like, yeah, maybe you have so many levels allotted to the team, and so you can be strategic in how you're allocating points to level your various classes in your team comp. And I think that's going to create an interesting layer of complexity to competitive battle game tournaments.
The other option for that would be to have, as we have brackets in a regular tournament, have tier brackets for the tournament for battle games. So you have this bracket's level 1, next bracket's level 2. Then you can see the progression of if people get better or worse as they level up.
You could also do an Elo system, which would be like, I think, over a reign, and maybe this is more of a fun thing. I think for the Battlemaster, it's kind of new, right? So I don't know, I haven't looked at the structure, but like maybe at the start of the reign, you have your team and you're locked in with your comp, and then it's all about grinding and getting an Elo score at the end. I know that probably, there's rock, paper, scissors involved. Maybe it's just some other comp that's naturally going to beat you, but there's apps that track that. So
you were thinking the chess mindset, right? That's chess mindset is you just play a lot of games, play people who are just a bit more difficult than you are, and improve your rating.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought about that with like fight card system. So you do a fight card system to enable fighter rankings and like Elo Rating.
I believe there's an app for that now,
Yeah,
actually.
I got it. So I've been following that. So you'd like to see that more often? You'd like to?
I'm contributing thoughts for. I don't have a lot of skin in the game here. I'm just getting ideas out for that. So.
I think the big thing right now, especially since the battle path is so new to Amtgard, we actually haven't had very much experience in actually seeing what a battle game based tournament would look like. So a lot of things right now is trial and error, or stuff we have to borrow from other games, or just kind of just seeing what sticks and lands and what will work for our kingdom culture. But everything we throw out there is just going to be ideas, and I don't think there's any wrong ideas. We just got to see what's going to work for us.
And then there's also Phoenix Ball, like in the way they do their setup and system and the whole scenario.
Yeah.
They even do have seasons, so that's something that could be looked at. Like, you guys are interested in that?
I think we've tried that in the past, and we found that it caused more harm than it did good. Like, it caused a lot of aggression and anger towards certain things. I'm not even sure exactly how that
I
came
remember
about.
something about that. It was just because the classes were so unbalanced with how they were built. Like if you had a set spell list for each class, maybe, but
I think. Do you think that was because we didn't quite have the battle game competitive culture yet, and it was just such a clash
yeah,
that we just weren't ready for that type
I-
of format?
I think that so one thing about battles, battle gaming is your spell list can change until the point of when the battle game can start, right?
And, yeah.
Now, if you had your spell list set, your opponent can't find out what it is. But if you have your spell list set ahead of time, then maybe whoever's running the games can say, "Hey, okay, this is fair. This is why it's fair." Submit stuff ahead of time so it can be judged accordingly. Because it does frustrate a lot of people if they go into a game and they're like instantly sniped by just death spells, right? So I remember reading specifically part of that. The game was skewed because people were just it was all about who could rap the fastest.
Yeah. Wrap.
And that's also why like Phoenix Ball specifically has walls and cover so that you can avoid that.
I definitely think if it were to come to a battle game tournament, definitely the thing is that I would like to see, kind of circling bound to the original thing, is like because our game is so diverse in every single class and you can get so many different options. Any tournament would definitely need like at least an objective and terrain, and you almost have to walk in on the Collegium from both ends, so you can't actually start, but they actually would need to pick, like they have a moment to strategize before they engage,
Right.
and stuff like that. So I think that's the hardest part about the battle game tournaments too, is just the fact that because of that diversity, we got any format's going to be different. I actually can kind of picture. I feel like what could happen is that someone is going to come up with an idea that battle game people will like eventually, and not create the animosity, whether it's like a seasons or a type of tournament or something, and that's what's going to stick.
Thinking seasons.
See, yeah, however that works.
So it's to give more opportunity to have more battles that matter.
It also resets everything at the start of every season or the end of every season. Everything resets, which gives the option for the new people to get involved to the next one, because then you can get them hyped until starting in the next one. Sorry.
The only problem I can see with that is we do have a lot of parks in our kingdom that are very spread out, so it'd be really hard to say, okay, here's on the north side of our kingdom, here's the south side. How are these two teams gonna fight?
Right. Yeah.
I know in the past we tried like a districts, like we had a north, central, and south, and they seem to go pretty well, but it's still that distancing is an issue. But I feel like we might, if we were to do something like that, we'd have to leave it up to like those districts to kind of pull themselves together and stuff. But that's
probably do like what they do with like football and basketball. They have
the AFL and NFL,
like the Rose Bowl.
Whatever.
You talk louder for the camera.
That sounds a little better.
So having divisions.
So you'd have your divisions like north, south, east, west, whatever, and then at like Salt Wars, you'd have the top person in each top team in each division competing at the event.
We have. I think we have a lot of things we can brainstorm. It's going to be an
So
evolve.
that gave me that gave me some things to think about in designing something like that.
Beautiful.
Anyone else?
I have some. So, for specifically battles, the battles require or can require paragons to be for your higher level battles. One of the questions is, how do you shoot for paragon but without being so dominating that you're ruining everybody else's
you gauge what you need. I was talking to Leah about this actually before we started the panel. Is you don't want to make it so that you crush an entire field in some guy's first day and he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is stupid. So you got to gauge what you need to do to win. That's the difference between getting 10 battles and getting a Battlemaster. Is you can crush the field all you want, but you need to know that where the fine line is of how much you really need to do to win, or how much is too much. Like even in a fighting tournament, you can overwhelmingly destroy some little kid, but that doesn't serve you at all. Like literally. But that's my feelings on it, is just gauging how much you actually need to win, because it'll help you improve as well, because you may take spells you may not normally have taken in a spellcasting class. You may try a different strategy as a warrior or barbarian than you normally would have, just because you wouldn't do it normally if you were trying to just steamroll the other team.
Any thoughts, guys?
Like feats of strength.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, you drew
No,
the
you
battle.
guys, yeah, I'll defer to you guys on this one.
Well, setting yourself like achievable goals, self handicaps is a fun way to do it too. Like maybe you don't use any arrows at all carrying around. You can only use the arrows you pick up off the field. That's something that you can do. I think that it would a big thing we can encourage is like more recognition for stuff like that. If you're playing the game to be silly just because you want to have fun doing something new, that's pretty significant, and it can pull your skill away enough for everybody else to have fun, and you're still having fun with it. So achievable goals is something that you can shift into.
Yeah, I also feel like a big thing about you're specifically talking about Paragon ship and stuff like that, but Paragons doesn't necessarily mean the reason I'm getting my Paragon is because I'm destroying the team every single weekend. Paragon ships are also given out for education and talking to people and actually showing not that you can crush a field, but that you're proficient. It's not about winning, it's about proficiency. And again, winning is a form of proficiency, but kind of with what Canthor was saying is you got to know when to rein that back. But if you really want to show Paragon ship, it will be with that proficiency.
It's not about how we win, or not about winning itself, but how we win.
What's going on, Sasha?
We've got an online question.
Oh wow.
Ooh.
This is for all four of you. What do you think the game could do to make attaining the sword belt more consistent across kingdoms?
Sword belt more consistent across the kingdom.
Across just this kingdom or Amtgard wide?
Paraguay says.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, it's always
That'd be more.
it's always relative to within the kingdom, right? So honestly, I don't think that there should be a standard that bleeds across kingdoms. Sword Path in particular, our kingdom, we don't have the depth that like Iron Mountains has, where if you go to a tournament, you got to beat 3 sword knights and 2 warlords to achieve that, right? So that the quality of a fighter that's coming out when you start to scale outside of the kingdom starts to get skewed. I think what's important is culturally in the game, personally, people just need to respect that, you know, we're coming from different regions. We're the deserts here, and someone with a title is coming out representing the kingdom as, hey, I'm the best that we have, and we're going to continue to grow as we do that. I don't really have a good answer. I don't think that there's a good way to balance that out. If that is important to the person that's asking this question or someone that they have in mind, unfortunately, historically, that means you have to travel. If you go travel to a national tournament, right? And that's going to show you what the standard is nationally. But I'll tell you, that standard is incredibly high, and I think that's unrealistic for people. It's downright discouraging, I think, for most. So I don't think that should be the standard that we hold. But I also don't think that we should dumb down the standard as we have it within the kingdom to make the achievement more attainable for people. Because I do believe that it's very possible when you're looking within the kingdom, a kingdom that you can travel with, because now you're comparing yourself to just the fighters within that region, how much you're training against them, and those people should be accessible to you to train with. And so you should be able to level up and get to that level if you have the right level of dedication.
Thank you.
I feel like just to kind of add a little more to that too, I like the fact that you're saying that it is unrealistic about talking about different regions, because if you go to Burning Lands down south, like ever since I started, that's all they do. They ditch every day, they keep fighting, and their skills are different than, say, somebody from, I'm not comparing, but like if you go to our kingdom versus Burning Lands, it's very, very different. So we have a hard set rules for wins and stuff to get those titles and stuff like that, and you will be reflected within that region. So I feel like we need to help encourage, if for example, if our warlord was to go talk with another kingdom's warlord, instead of seeing each other be like, oh, the mentality should not be, I'm better than you because my kingdom fights more. The mentality should be you might have a different style, you might have a different view on things. What can I learn from you, and keep talking about back and forth. If anything, I feel like that's what we should be encouraging between different regions. Not so much of comparing skills, but seeing what we can learn between each other and then compare it. And all that's just going to do is further grow all of our kingdom stick games with that mentality.
I agree.
Go, Dennis. I have a second follow-up question for that. So say a player is dominating every tournament. Like they are going out to all the tournaments everywhere they go to. They always place first. No losses, anything like that. But how do you approach that mentality when they don't feel like anybody else is anywhere near their level, and they don't feel like they're worth their 8th or 9th or 10th warrior? Because the people they grew up with that were warlords and whatnot, they don't play anymore. Their idols that are there aren't there anymore.
I experienced that firsthand. What is time, right? But going to tournaments and just recognizing that I'm playing at kind of a different level than where our kingdom was at certain periods, right? Where people move, for example, right? We had good fighters that either just take a break, retire, or leave, and then you're still consistently performing in a tournament. This kind of, if I'm understanding correctly, kind of falls into like the quality of a tournament matters, right? And you do have to, I think, take an objective look of like, okay, of the active people in the tournament, in the kingdom, who was there, right? Did we have the people that are active? And from there, I think it's an element of, objectively, they beat the competition that's available within the kingdom. However, I completely respect and acknowledge that you can travel and fight out of the kingdom, and that is encouraged, right? Like if you're at your 8th, if someone were at their 8th right now and they're saying, hey, I'm trying to create a roadmap from now to Warlord, let's talk about training. Traveling and participating in other tournaments should be encouraged and part of that plan. And ideally, it would just feel good to get a win under your belt in a different region, going back to just experiencing and getting exposure to other styles. Mm-hmm. But I also recognize that this is a hobby, and people have personal lives, and I don't think it's fair to socially expect within the game that people do that they allocate additional time to travel outside of their kingdom to get that win that matters. So I do think that you have to look at it from a case-by-case basis, and what you're describing, I think it touches on a few different elements, even that own person's like dysfunction in thinking, and just thinking, I'm not worthy enough to receive this. All this boils down to me of lessening the emphasis of getting the award means I'm at that level, means that I'm that good. I mean, it's a recognition of a path, of habits. But once you get a warlord, once you've won those tournaments, nothing should change, in my opinion. I will still continue to do the thing that I do, which is grow. And honestly, to be vulnerable here, I will always be my own harshest critic. And what you're describing was a paradigm shift in how I viewed myself, where, well, what tournament would I win that would be enough for me to get my 8th, 9th, or 10th? And recognizing, wow, that bar that I'm setting for myself is almost unattainable because I have these superhero fighters that dedicated their lives. They're sleeping on couches, out of state with warlords training. And like, well, that's what it means to be a warlord. And maybe that picture was, those are heroes, but they're not the standard that I should be holding myself to.
It's a different generation.
Yeah, it's not healthy.
Yeah. Cultures change.
You want to remain happy in the game. You want to continue to do it for years, and sometimes you have to let things go.
I think a big thing, it kind of feeds me from that, because I feel like when you're talking about sword and battle a lot, you're dealing with the more competitive aspect of Amtgard.
Yeah.
So it's hard. Sometimes it's not just swallowing our pride. Sometimes we have to take the loss. Sometimes we have to push to get those wins that are even more difficult. So if there's anything I could encourage for anybody in general, it's that, yes, you may feel like you're up there. You may feel like you're doing great and stuff, and you are doing great. People will see that at your local levels, but the main goal is your fun in the game.
Right.
So don't, if you are the harshest critic of yourself and stuff like that, that should be what's actually most important, is just pushing yourself in this competitive, athletic, sport aspect of our game, rather than just trying to go for number one.
Can I make one other just practical suggestion? If someone's in that position, I think it's okay to say, hey, I really don't feel worthy of receiving that. And hopefully you can do that in a way behind the scenes that it doesn't make things awkward. But I think if you're having those thoughts of like, well, I'm in this situation, I think it's important to establish a goal for yourself of, okay, realistically, what is it that you want then? What scenario that is achievable for you or obtainable? If you want to travel and you're saying, hey, well, I want to travel to a tournament of this caliber and win it, awesome. If you're setting that bar for yourself, that's a tangible goal, and you can communicate to that to people. I think it's okay to say, hey, I want to get my 10th Order of the Warrior by winning an event like Keep or something, right? Cool, man. Because I've had people call me and say, hey, well, they want to give me this. I don't know how I feel. As if they need my approval to accept that. And that's the wrong way to look at it. And I tell them, I said, look, this is your life. This is your hobby. And for me, I look at my achievement and I say, when you have that piece of paper, the 9th or the 10th or whatever, is it something that brings you joy? That you're like, man, I worked really hard, and you can tell your parents, you can tell someone that doesn't play this game, like, yeah, this is an award that I got because I worked really hard at this thing and I'm proud of myself. That's all this is, right? Recognition for the dedication and discipline and the time that you put into this. So I would just put it back on them. Ask yourself that question. If you would be happy with it, right on. I'm happy for you.
Last question, in 5 minutes. How do you deal with injury? How do you recover and get back into the swing of fighting after you get injured?
I've had my fair share of
Yeah, I was
those.
gonna say.
I would say do what you can when you can, and then just focus on getting better, because in the long run, you're going to be worse off if you try to push yourself. Having several surgeries on my head, for instance, I always knew, talked with people at my park, hey, I don't think it's a good idea for me to shoot the bow while I've have this injury, because my equilibrium's off, throws me off, and I need you guys to hold me accountable, say, hey, don't let me do this, because this dumb guy here tends to forget what I'm supposed to be doing for the sake of what I want to do. And having the support from your park is paramount, I think. Having somebody you can be accountable to. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in the end, that's what will get you back to where you want to be.
I love that. Having accountability is important. Mm-hmm. I would break this down into 2 sections. First, you need to understand your injury. I had tennis elbow last year that I gave myself after a tournament. I needed to educate myself as to what that is. I could still fight, but I wanted to rehab that and take care of it. So do you have an action plan on how you're going to address that? Does it require you to not use it over a period of time? If so, then you can ask yourself, if I were to fight, do something physical, can I do so safely without making this worse? A typical injury someone might incur is a hand injury. I'm going to deliberately fight offhand. When I had tennis elbow, there's pictures of me online with my arm in my tunic. And I'm just like, I'm just going to fight single sword and work on my offhand. And often you can turn these into really good opportunities to improve. However, sometimes the answer is no, you shouldn't fight. And you need to respect that, because if you go against the grain on that, you're going to get diminishing returns anyways. Your healing's going to be slower. You could make things worse. Once again, this is a hobby. Don't do that.
Self-discipline is big in that.
So at that point, I would recommend a mental game, right? You can still study, you can still analyze, you can still come to park and participate, but you have to be disciplined in giving yourself grace and respecting the healing process, and you can create an action plan on ways you can still improve your game despite being injured.
I mean, you play for one day and then you're out for another 2 weeks, 3 weeks because you didn't want to follow the rules, or you sit for that 1 week and you get all the following months after.
Something I also like to think about it's I've been kind of overweight all my life a little bit. It's something I fight all the time with, and I still love to fight, but I definitely can feel that on me. So I've rolled my ankle many a times, and something I do is if I can't fight, I transition to more passive roles, support roles and stuff like that too. So I can still participate and actually it's like that's my version of mental games, as I switch to more mental assisting support roles versus frontline combat and stuff like that. But I guess I do want to, this is something I really want to make sure I emphasize, but we are, we're kind of, we're nerds, we like D&Ds, we like the fantasy aspect of this, but for the love of God, if I can encourage anything to anybody, no matter what they're doing, if you're injured or anything, stretch. We are being physical and competitive, so if you have injuries, make sure you're working on them, make sure that you're keeping your body healthy, drink water, that will creep up on people and stuff like that. It really does.
Hail hydrate.
We have a few people at our park that fight in full armor every day, and we're like, how are you guys not?
You better be drinking water.
Yeah.
Well, no one puts their water at their spawn point.
Yeah.
That's my mind. It should be a requirement. I'm like, yo, every time you die, you can drink water.
You got 30 seconds.
What are you doing?
You got 30 seconds. You gotta get a few chugs down.
I'm just making a note, staring at my partner over here. Maybe we should buy 2 cases of water and put one at each spawn point.
Let's buy a second cooler and bring both.
The what?
Yeah, just
Coolers will work.
Coolers?
water jug with a communal plague cup.
Yeah.
No, you don't want that.
Let's go.
Angus brings, he got a bunch of the event cups when they were coming down the event trailer, and he brings like a bag full of event cups and he washes them every week.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Okay, that's time.
Well,
Sweet.
Thank you.
oh my goodness, is it already?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, I'll be here for